Have you ever stopped to think that your taste for expensive, high-quality things was something you were born with? I bet it was. If you dig into your memory, you will remember several situations where, even as a child, you were criticized for liking expensive things before you even knew how much things cost. But did you know that this trait could be directly linked to behaviors of success or failure in your adult life? In this video, you are going to discover the psychology behind people who earn little but only like expensive things. This behavior is much more common than you think, but it can reveal a rare potential for ambition, aesthetic vision, and non-conformity. The big truth that science hides is that this mental pattern of yours is not a flaw, and you don't need to change just to force yourself into a low standard of living and cheap spending.
Good morning, sir.
This behavior simply reveals that you possess valuable skills that the average person will simply never acquire. But be careful. This exact same trait can either be the fuel that drives you toward extreme prosperity and real wealth creation, or the anchor that drags you down into a deep pit of debt. So, stay with me until the end to find out how to channel this superpower to your advantage. I am going to show you how to use this natural behavior to bring you closer to a life of genuine abundance, where you don't just need to look prosperous, but actually build a solid net worth, smart investments, and true financial freedom, simply by using the right way the natural characteristics that have accompanied you since childhood. But before I hand over this game-changing key, write "I am rich" in the comments. Just like that. Write "I am rich" down below, so I know how many of us are watching this video right now. I will personally interact with everyone who comments. Take this moment to subscribe to the canal, hit the like button on this video, and save it to your Success Mindset playlist. You will want to re-watch this content more than once to know exactly how to use your taste for expensive things as a massive differentiator in your work, finances, and personal life. Adjust your headphones and stay with me until the end, because what psychology and neuroscience reveal about your mind today will completely change your relationship with money. Let's understand what's behind this. Here is a short, magnetic introduction to open part 1, serving as a perfect transition between what you said in the general introduction and the start of the scientific concepts. The goal here is to make the viewer think, wow, she is talking exactly about me. I need to understand the science behind this. The mental diagnosis, the science behind expensive taste and the secret your brain hides. You know that feeling of walking through a mall, looking at a window full of products, and without seeing a single price tag, your eyes are drawn exactly to the most expensive item in the store? Then you walk in, touch the fabric, notice the finish, and think, I knew it. The people around you usually laugh and say you have a radar for what's expensive, or that it's pure fussiness. But science shows it isn't. There is a real neurological explanation for why your brain rejects what is cheap. In psychology and neuroscience, we call this neuroaesthetics, associated with value sensitivity. I know the name sounds complicated, but the logic is incredibly simple. The brains of some people have internal wiring that is much more refined for capturing visual and tactile stimuli. Brain mapping studies show that when you come into contact with an object, your visual cortex and your somatosensory cortex, which is the area responsible for our sense of touch, process textures, symmetry, weight, and quality much more intensely than the average person. To give you an idea of how deep this goes, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania and major neuroeconomics centers around the world are investigating how our brains calculate the value of things even before our conscious mind understands what is happening. When you look at a cheap, poorly finished, or low-quality product, your brain doesn't just see an object. It registers the asymmetry, the fragility of the material, and the imperfection. For a mind with high neuroaesthetic sensitivity, these stimuli cause real discomfort. It is a cognitive rejection response. That is why you prefer emptiness on your shelf or in your wardrobe over filling it with something you consider garbage. And do you want historical and cultural proof that this drives billion-dollar markets? Think of Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. He was the perfect example of this brain wiring. Jobs was known for his millimetric obsession with design, symmetry, and the texture of materials. There is a famous story that he spent months arguing with engineers about the internal finish of computers, parts that the final consumer would never see. But his brain demanded aesthetic perfection. He didn't accept the basic, and what did he do with that trait? He transformed a computer, which was just a boring machine, into a global object of high-end luxury desire. He used his sensitivity to create an empire that dictates consumption worldwide. The massive problem arises when we bring this rare trait into our daily financial lives without proper control. Because your brain has this high-standard DNA, the marketing industry knows exactly how to trigger your spending. Luxury brands don't just sell the product, they sell the perfect sensory experience. The right weight of the packaging, the perfect click when closing a handbag, or the smooth glide of a premium smartphone screen. When you swipe your credit card to buy a high-value item, your brain receives a massive flood of dopamine. It is the perfect reward for your high cognitive perception. The problem is, if you earn little and don't control your budget, this relentless pursuit of satisfying your high-standard brain will devour your income. You start maxing out your card limits, accumulating high balances, and directing the cash that should be building your net worth straight into the pockets of major fashion houses. Understanding that your expensive taste is born from a high-perception cognitive skill is the first step to changing your financial game. You don't need to blame yourself for having good taste, nor should you force yourself to accept a low standard of living that doesn't match who you are. The secret is not to suppress your high-standard DNA, but to learn how to manage your cash flow so that your money works for you. The golden question you need to start asking yourself from today on every time your brain gets hooked by a premium product is, am I using my high perception to build real value in my life? Or am I just enriching brand owners while emptying my own bank account? Because if you have the rare ability to identify what is best, you also have the ability to use that same strategic mind to build real wealth, invest your capital intelligently, and create a financial signature of true success. Innate nonconformity. If you identified with our first topic, what I am about to reveal to you now will clear up your view of yourself once and for all. Have you ever noticed how most people around you seem to have an almost infinite capacity to settle? They accept jobs they hate, adjust to a salary that barely covers the bills, and buy clothes and items of questionable quality, thinking this is good enough for someone who makes so little. They embrace scarcity as if it were an inevitable destiny. But with you, it's a different story. When you face scarcity, the basic or cheap stuff that ends up costing more, you don't just feel a visual dislike. You feel a discomfort that is almost physical. It's an internal restlessness, a knot in your stomach, a voice whispering that you don't belong in that setting of limitation. People often call this snobbery, pride, or ingratitude. They say you should be grateful for the little you have. But in developmental psychology and leadership behavior studies, we give this another name: innate nonconformity, driven by a personality trait called proactive ambition. And here is the scientific backing that will change how you see yourself. Studies on the psychology of success and behavioral self-management show that nonconformity is not a character flaw. It is one of the greatest biological indicators of high-growth potential and wealth generation. The average human being is evolutionarily programmed to seek homeostasis, meaning the least effort and the acceptance of the environment to save energy. But minds gifted with proactive ambition have a much lower tolerance threshold for mediocrity. For this profile, discomfort in the face of scarcity acts as a biological alarm. It is your brain saying, there is a higher level available and we need to get there. Want a brilliant example of this in the global financial market? Look at the story of Howard Schultz, the man who transformed Starbucks from a single tiny shop selling coffee beans in Seattle into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Schultz was not born into wealth. He grew up in a public housing project in Brooklyn, surrounded by poverty. But he had this innate nonconformity. He saw the reality around him and refused to accept that his life would be reduced to that scarcity. When he traveled to Italy and experienced the elegant cafe culture, his brain clicked. He didn't just want to sell cheap coffee in plastic cups. He wanted to sell a high-standard experience, the design, the aroma, the status of a third place between home and work. He channeled the discomfort of his childhood to create a new global consumer behavior. Nonconformity is the fuel that makes you want to grow at work, look for new income streams, open your own business, and refuse stagnation. The great danger, and the reason why you might be earning little today despite having this rare potential, is when you direct this superpower into the wrong channel. Instead of using this energy and nonconformity to produce more value, multiply your capital, and make smart investments that will fund your lifestyle in the future, you use this power to try to buy your way out of scarcity in the present. You go to malls, open international luxury brand websites, and swipe your credit card on expensive items that your current cash flow cannot sustain. You try to cure the discomfort of scarcity by accumulating liabilities, high bills, and endless monthly installments. The result? You sabotage your own budget and lock yourself, by your own choice, into the exact financial trap you hate the most. Understand this once and for all. Your refusal of the basic is an extraordinary tool of power. It shows you have the mindset required to manage big businesses, lead projects, and build a solid net worth. But for this superpower to work in your favor, you need to stop spending your ambition on shopping bags and start injecting that ambition into your career, your finances, and your ability to generate revenue. Don't change your taste. Don't try to force yourself to accept a low-standard life just to fit in with the average. Instead of shrinking your desires to fit your current salary, use your innate nonconformity as an unshakable engine to increase your income and make your money work for you. You were born with your financial thermostat set to the top. Now, configure your daily actions to get there intelligently and sustainably. The psychology of anticipated deservedness. We have reached the third pillar of our mental diagnosis, and I need you to be extremely honest with yourself right now. Who hasn't, after an exhausting week of work, full of deadlines, demands, and problems to solve, looked at an object of desire and thought that classic phrase, "I work so hard, I deserve a treat." You swipe your credit card, feel that immediate relief, and for a few moments, all the exhaustion of daily life seems to vanish. In psychology, we call this behavior a psychological compensation mechanism, which goes hand in hand with a reward bias. This is, without a doubt, one of the biggest emotional traps that prevent talented people from building their financial independence. Let me explain the science behind this very simply. When you live a stressful routine and feel that you are earning less than your potential deserves, your brain enters a state of emotional deprivation. To your mind, working hard without seeing major financial progress is interpreted as a sacrifice without a reward. To relieve this pain and frustration, your brain looks for a biological shortcut. It demands an urgent hit of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and instant gratification. And what is the fastest way modern society has found to release dopamine? Consumption. When you buy that expensive item, your mind is not evaluating the utility of the product or your bank account balance. It is using the object as a social anesthetic. The act of buying functions as an immediate reward, an ego massage that says, "See, all your hard work paid off." The big problem is that this feeling of relief is terrifyingly short-lived. The dopamine evaporates in a few hours or days. The reality of the exhausting routine returns, and you find yourself forced to buy another expensive thing to try to numb the next cycle of fatigue. There is a fascinating true story in the world of international celebrities that perfectly illustrates how this dynamic works, even at extreme levels of money. Nicolas Cage, one of Hollywood's biggest actors and an Oscar winner, accumulated a fortune estimated at over $150 million. However, he faced a grueling work schedule, filming multiple movies a year under immense media and personal pressure. How did his brain compensate for all that stress? Through extravagant impulsive spending on incredibly expensive and exotic items. He bought castles in Europe, private jets, exotic pets, and even a rare comic book collection worth millions. Cage used shopping as a psychological compensation mechanism for his draining lifestyle. The result? He went bankrupt, owed millions to the IRS, and was forced to accept practically any movie role for years just to pay off his past. Digital hyper-signaling. Finally, we need to talk about the biggest window of appearances in the modern world: social media. It has transformed our refined taste into a trap of digital hyper-signaling, completely based on the theory of relative status and social comparison. In the old days, we only compared ourselves to our neighbors on the block. Today, the moment we open Instagram or TikTok, we are bombarded by people who seem to live in an eternal cradle of wealth, flashing international luxury brands 24/7. This exposure creates an overwhelming psychological pressure. The nonconformity built into your DNA makes you look at those screens and want to belong to that high-standard universe. The problem is that, to fit in, you start buying backdrops. You don't buy that premium smartphone or those expensive clothes for their actual usefulness in your work or daily life. You buy them for the respect, the validation, and the likes you know you will get when you showcase that object to the world. You signal wealth your pocket doesn't actually have yet to impress people who, most of the time, don't even care about you. It is the math of failure. You destroy your bank account, max out your card limits, and compromise your finances just to maintain a digital persona. The real shift happens when you understand that the only signaling that matters is your bank balance and your investments. Stop spending to build other people's image of success and start keeping your money to fund your own real success. The turning point, where expensive taste destroys you. Up until now, we have understood the science behind your good taste and uncovered the emotional traps your past and the internet have created for your pocket. But now, we have reached the most critical moment of our journey. The true turning point. This is where the line between having rare potential and falling into financial failure becomes dangerously thin. In the next 3 topics, we are going to open the black box of the illusions you tell yourself when consuming, and face head-on the invisible price you are paying for trying to fast-track a lifestyle your current pocket cannot support. Take a deep breath, because this is the moment to discover where your expensive taste is destroying your future. Emotional math. Have you ever noticed that buying something with cold, hard cash hurts a lot more than swiping a credit card? If you have $100 in your wallet and have to hand those bills over to the cashier, your brain feels the weight of the loss instantly. But when you use a card or digital financing, it feels like you didn't spend anything at all. In consumer psychology, researchers call this payment anesthesia. Studies from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, proved through MRI scans that the act of paying with physical cash activates the exact same areas of the brain associated with physical pain, like the insular cortex. But guess what happens when we use credit? That pain area simply doesn't light up. The credit card numbs the perception of loss, allowing your emotional math to kick in with that dangerous phrase, "Oh, but the monthly payment fits my budget." That is exactly where the trap snaps shut. Your mind focuses purely on the small size of the monthly installment and completely ignores the total cost of the product and how long you will be tied to it. In the US and European markets, the buy now, pay later system became a massive craze precisely for this reason. By breaking a high price tag into 4 or 5 payments, the industry shuts off your brain's danger alarm. But do the math with me. What happens when you stack 10 payments that fit your budget? They add up and swallow 70% or 80% of your monthly income. In practice, you are enslaving next month's labor to pay for the luxury you consumed last month. You become a hostage to your own plastic. Tell me down below in the comments so I can know if this has ever happened to you. What was the craziest thing or the highest amount you ever put on a credit card plan just because the monthly payment looked small? Be honest, no one here is going to judge you. The post-purchase anxiety cycle, the status hangover. The scene is a classic, and I bet you've lived it. You spend weeks craving a premium item. You walk into the store, the customer service is flawless, the bag is beautiful, and the smell of the new product is amazing. You get home, do the unboxing, try it on, and feel that magical euphoria at the top of the world. But then, a few hours pass. The product goes into the closet or onto the table, and suddenly a strange coldness starts hitting your stomach. That joy disappears and gives way to an uncomfortable weight. It is the famous status hangover. In psychology, the renowned scientist Leon Festinger named this mental discomfort cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance happens when your actions come into direct conflict with your beliefs or your reality. Your high-standard brain wanted the status and pleasure of the luxury item. But your rational mind knows perfectly well that the purchase blew your budget and that the bill is due very soon. This collision of thoughts triggers a devastating post-purchase anxiety. The euphoria turns into guilt. The fear of next month's bank statement starts keeping you awake at night. And worse, this turns into silent stress inside your home. You start hiding shopping bags from your partner or family, lying about the actual price of things, or isolating yourself just so you don't have to admit you acted on an impulse of the ego. You bought the object to feel powerful, but the end result was feeling prosperous for 5 minutes and anxious for 30 days. Is it worth trading your peace of mind for a designer bag? Think about that before making your next choice. Invisible anchor. There is a huge myth in the financial market that earning a low income is the only reason people fail to build wealth. It is very common for us to think, when I make double what I make today, all my financial problems will vanish and I'll start investing. Except the years roll by, you get a raise, you move up in position, you start bringing in more money, and mysteriously, you still reach the end of the month with your account drained or tight. Why does this happen? Behavioral science explains this through a phenomenon called lifestyle alignment, or in its original English term, lifestyle creep. As your income rises, your high-standard thermostat causes your expenses to shoot up in the exact same proportion. The simple coffee becomes a $7 gourmet latte, the average restaurant becomes fine dining on the weekends, and the standard car is swapped for a financed premium vehicle. Without realizing it, you throw an invisible anchor into your own growth. If you keep your mind programmed only to spend proportionally to what you earn, you could make $10,000, $20,000, or $50,000 a month, and you will still remain a financially fragile person. Making more money does not fix the issue if your mindset stays focused on accumulating liabilities and futilities instead of building assets. Lifestyle creep forces you to work harder and harder just to maintain the fixed cost of your success persona. If you want your expensive taste to be a major asset and not your ruin, the golden rule is simple. When your income goes up, do not raise your standard of living immediately. Raise your investment capacity and the construction of your real wealth. Let your money grow first, so that your investments can fund your luxuries in the future in a sustainable way. How to use expensive taste to build wealth. Stop talking about pain and how your mind sabotages your finances. From this moment on, we are going to flip the script and discover how to transform your nonconformity and your natural good taste into a machine for generating real wealth, assets, and the abundance you were born to live. The secret of the silent rich. The difference between looking rich and being rich. There is a brutal difference between two words most people confuse every day: wealth and showing off. In financial psychology, we study the phenomenon of the silent rich. The scientific concept behind this is based on asset accumulation versus liability ostentation. And the biggest secret you need to understand right now is that true wealth is, for the most part, completely invisible. Real wealth is not in the designer label you flash on the street or the imported car you financed in 60 installments to impress others. Real wealth is in what you don't spend. It is in your investments, your portfolios, the size of your emergency fund, and your peace of mind. When you focus all your energy and hard-earned cash purely on looking prosperous, you make a severe mathematical error. You consume the exact capital that should be generating your freedom. You hand your money over to the owners of luxury brands while your own bank account stays in the red. In the famous American study published in the book The Millionaire Next Door, Researchers Thomas Stanley and William Danko discovered something fascinating. The majority of true millionaires in the United States do not live in extravagant mansions, nor do they wear clothes covered in logos. They are discreet, drive ordinary cars, and focus obsessively on building silent net worth. They understood that liabilities lose value the minute they leave the store, while assets put more money into your pocket every single month. Anyone who spends everything to look rich rarely has the time or the money to become truly rich. I want to propose a quick reflection here in the middle of our talk. Write down below in the comments. Do you prefer to spend your whole life showing off an expensive image to others? Or do you prefer the peace of having a truly bulletproof bank account packed with investments, transforming nonconformity into workplace fuel? Remember that back in the introduction, we discovered that your discomfort with the basic and with scarcity is not a flaw, but a sign of innate nonconformity. Well then, now that you know this, your big challenge is to learn the scientific concept of ambition channeling, driven by a psychological trait called an internal locus of control. This means understanding that the only person responsible for shifting your financial level is you through your productive actions. Average people use the discomfort of scarcity as an excuse to cry, complain, or rack up credit card debt to try to mask reality. The smart nonconformist does the opposite. They use that discomfort as a power plant of energy to work and produce more. If you look at your current life, at your tight budget, and feel that knot in your stomach because you know you deserve a high standard, you need to shift your focus immediately from spending to generating. Instead of wasting your brainpower thinking about what next bag, shoe, or expensive restaurant you're going to put on a payment plan to ease your frustration, direct all that mental strength into answering one single question. How can I use my talent to create new income streams, stand out in my career, or get a promotion and bring in more cash? Use your good taste as the unshakable motor that gets you studying at night, starting a business, or working with sharper focus. When you flip that switch, your ambition stops being a bill factory and turns into a magnet for new financial opportunities. Your focus leaves the mall window and goes straight into building your own empire. The smart luxury strategy. Let's be clear that having high standard DNA means you shouldn't, and don't have to, force yourself to buy cheap, low quality things that don't fit who you are. We are not going to change who you are. What you're going to learn to do starting today is apply the scientific strategy of smart luxury, based on the analysis of cost per use and conscious consumption. What is dumb luxury? It is burning your budget on fleeting futilities, fast fashion clothes that will sit forgotten in the closet, or incredibly expensive dinners just to post a picture on your feed. That is burning money. Smart luxury, on the other hand, happens when you direct your sophisticated taste toward things that bring a real return to your professional, financial, or personal life. For example, if you work in tech, design, or content creation, buying the best computer on the market is not a wasteful expense. It is a premium tool investment that will increase your delivery speed and quality, generating more revenue for your cash flow. If you spend your money on books by international mentors, high-performance courses, or networking experiences that connect you with high-level people, you're investing in your greatest asset, yourself. Apply the cost per use calculation as well. A single classic, flawless piece of clothing of the highest quality, which you will wear hundreds of times in important business meetings to close high-value contracts, is infinitely cheaper and smarter than 10 cheap disposable items. Learn to direct your good taste toward what builds your future, not toward what evaporates in your present. Now that you understand how the silent rich act and how to use your ambition to generate revenue, we enter our final stretch. The moment to put all of this into practice through a simple exercise that will shield your pocket, followed by the definitive command for you to step into the abundance you have always deserved. The financial mirror. Test. Practical exercise. The time has come to put your superpower into action with a practical psychological tool called cognitive detachment. To break the automatic dopamine impulse that forces you to buy, you are going to apply the 72-hour rule. Every time your high-standard brain gets hooked by a luxury item that is outside your current cash flow, you will force yourself to wait 3 days before swiping that credit card. This time frame is enough for the emotional storm to pass and for your rational mind to take back control. During those 72 hours, you are going to ask yourself the ultimate question of the financial mirror test. If I were completely forbidden from posting a picture of this object, showing it to my friends, or telling anyone about this purchase, if this luxury were an absolute secret and totally invisible to the world, would I still spend my hard-earned money on it? If the answer is no, it means you didn't want the product. You just wanted the validation and the status, the path to genuine abundance. My final command to you today is a call to your true identity. Understand, once and for all, that your sophisticated taste and your nonconformity are not a curse. They are your passport to the top. You were born with a mind configured for excellence, and you should by no means force yourself to accept a life of scarcity or a low standard to try to fit in with the average person. Your ambition is a precious gift. Your only mistake up to this point was using this extraordinary power to build other people's wealth through liabilities and high credit card statements, while leaving your own future unprotected. Starting today, you are going to use that exact same refined mind to build your genuine abundance. Channel your nonconformity into generating more revenue, multiplying your capital, and accumulating solid assets that will work for you day and night. Let your investments buy your lifestyle. You deserve the best the world has to offer, but you deserve even more the peace of mind that comes with being truly free and prosperous. Who are you trying to impress with money you don't even have yet? Drop the persona, change your game today, and start building the real empire you were born to lead. Big hug, and I'll see you at the next level.